there, art nerds. Paul Rubens reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in taking a look at another one of their watercolor palettes. So today we are taking a look at this pretty thing. We're going to be comparing it to their highest grade, to their floral watercolors, and to their student grade. And hopefully we can answer the question of where these fit in Paul Rubens' lineup and if they are a good fit for you.
Before we get too far into this, Lightwish wanted me to mention that this set features rich and vibrant colors, high purity and excellent transparency, and that it is travel size for portability. Now, I think it comes in a pretty standard size 24 half pan set, but I do really love the palette that it comes in.
It arrived here in this Amazon package. I just wanted to show you guys what to expect if you were ordering Paul Rubens. And inside the package, we have their wow, I'm gonna butcher that, I'm so sorry. Cai Hui. Let me know how to say that, please. My computer is actually dead right now, so I can't check for myself. How convenient. This is their 24 color set, new made in China. And we have talked about a lot of Paul Rubens sets here on the channel. So what I'm thinking I might do with this one is do a comparison swatch against their Floral 24 and then maybe their 48 color sets, since those are the most recent Paul Rubens products that I reviewed here. And the 48 set was their Youlan set, I believe. So this is their Cai Hui solid watercolor pigment, 24 colors. Should be protected from prolonged exposure to direct sunlight and moisture. Not for people under the age of 3. These will stay good for 3 years. And I think nothing else really differs from the usual Paul Rubens packaging. Like I said, we've talked about Paul Rubens here on the channel quite a bit. Now, this was sent to me care of. I did not pay for this, which means this is technically not a review from me. I will try to put them to the test as fairly as possible to give you guys a good idea of if these are a good fit for you and for your needs. The packaging is really pretty and brilliant. And I apologize, my table is still kind of wet. I'm trying to salvage an inked line art illustration on spoiled watercolor paper right now. So my whole table got really wet. So inside this very pretty, very brightly colored box, oh, we have an equally pretty, very brightly colored watercolor palette. I love that. We also received the watercolor journal, which they do like to send me, and I already have one, so I may gift this one to a friend, and I will just test out in the one that I already have and already like. It's got some sketches on the front of things I might want to draw. So this is from, I believe, the 48 color set. Just to give you guys, and this was the field test from the 48 color set, just to give you guys an idea of what this paper looks like. Although I do plan on swatching these on this paper today as well. So are you guys ready to take a look at what is inside this absolutely gorgeous multicolor, multi-chrome palette? So to me, this is so funny. At first glance, it kind of looks like we just got one color, but if you look very carefully, you can see that they're all labeled. I have a feeling this might be in their student grade line, and editor Becca will double check that for me, since again, my computer isn't functional right now. So we have a swatch card on their beautiful sparkly paper, which I can't actually show you how sparkly it is, but it's very sparkly. And I have a video where I painted an illustration. It's like a hummingbird delivering a baby Lilliputian. So I've reviewed this paper before and I liked it. And then we also have some paperwork for this range. And it looks like this is a 48 color range. Oh, okay. All right. I like when they include paperwork. So this is the full color range. I know I've seen the 48 piece set of this before when I was reviewing the 48 piece set, and I was wondering what the difference between those two sets were. So I'm actually really glad that they sent this because it means I can do a head-to-head comparison. I'm just looking to see if it says what quality line this is, whether this is considered a professional grade or a student grade. So here's some information about this line on the back. Paul Rubens Cai Hui series, transparent watercolor pigments, color materials are all used pure color powder, excellent light resistance, high saturation of color, good transparency, good staining and diffusion effect, natural and even color mixing, stable and delicate, smoother creation. High quality aluminum tubular seal, more carefree use, exquisite design, more attentive details. That did not really answer my question. So I have reviewed a lot of Youlan, because that's the parent company, Youlan. I've reviewed a lot of their products over the years. So if you're curious about these watercolors, I'll try to link them for you guys down in the description. I've been using Paul Rubens and playing around with Paul Rubens since you could only get them on AliExpress. Now they are much more commonly available, and I'm excited to see that because they tend to be a very affordable option for professional grade watercolors that, to be fair, you do kind of have to get them on Amazon in the US unless you guys know someone else who carries Paul Rubens, but that is very accessible for a lot of people, and it's wonderful to be able to talk about a good quality watercolor that is at a very affordable price point, because it's a great way to get more people to try painting. So I am going to start by, we have two floaty around colors, ultramarine and Mars Black. I wonder if they would have fit in here, and if maybe they just, no, wait, these might be duplicates, because look, I have an ultramarine right here, and I don't have another Mars Black down here. So we only have one duplicate color. That is fine by me. I wasn't expecting any duplicate colors. With the 48 piece set, we received 3 duplicate colors, which is fine because sometimes you need a refill. So the palette itself is very, very pretty. It's got a watercolor print on it, and it's very colorful, and you can even see the texture of the watercolor paper on it. I think that is, I love pretty art supplies, so I like that. I'll start by unwrapping Mars Black for you. This has been wrapped. It has the color name. Then on one side, it has everything in English. So gum Arabic, PBK 11, the light resistance, which looks like 5 stars, and then the transparency. And then on the other side, it's in Chinese. And what I normally do is I will normally peel this. We'll carefully peel this so you guys can see. And then I will cut the Chinese and the English name and tape it to the back. And I do this so that I can always have my color information, my name information, all of that on the pan itself, especially because this set doesn't actually say, well, it does here. It lists out the colors and the pigment information and light fastness and the transparency all in English. Yes, I love to see it. Paul Rubens, good job. All right, there we go. Now, I would not necessarily, I'm going to walk that back because at first my eye just saw cadmium, but these are all hues, and the hues of those are much safer for people to work with. In fact, there's a lot of hue colors in here, which are generally the cheaper of the pigments. So now I'm curious where this line sits between Meiliang, which is their student grade, and the Youlan, which is their professional grade. That might be something worth finding out. The colors in this set are Chinese white flesh color, lemon yellow hue, cadmium yellow hue, Camboge hue, cadmium red pale hue, cadmium red hue, cadmium red deep hue, permanent rose, alizarin crimson hue, purple lake, cerulean blue hue, cobalt blue hue, ultramarine, intense blue, indigo, sap green, hooker's green light, emerald, burnt sienna, raw umber, Van Dyke brown, burnt umber, ivory black, and Mars black. So something that I noticed with these is that this is a lot of hues. Most of the top rack are hues like lemon yellow hue, cadmium yellow hue, gamboge hue, cadmium red pale hue, etc. Whereas most of the bottom line, other than the cobalt blue hue, are those colors. Probably because cobalts and cadmiums are expensive and toxic, and by using hues, this can work better as like a younger artist or a student grade set. That said, I would still be careful about just handing this off to like a child artist, for example. But it would be safer than some of their other sets. So now I want to try swatching on their included swatch sheet. One of the things I like about this swatch sheet is it has the color number. It also has the color name in English. It has the pigment information. It has the light fast information, and it has the transparency information all in one place. And that makes it a lot more handy than trying to pull out, than trying to pull your pans out to figure out what is where and, can you refill it? And recently I bought a set of Artify watercolor brushes that I rather like. So I think I'm going to use their size 12 flat to swatch these. Now, Paul Rubens watercolors, they tend to activate very quickly. So I find that they benefit from not being pre-activated. And I find that when I pre-activate Paul Rubens watercolors, they can turn kind of soupy and goopy on the brush. So I'm going to kind of break my normal rule of pre-activating watercolors because I know that this brand does not benefit from pre-activation. Colors in this set are bright and fairly saturated. It's going to be interesting to see how these swatch in their cotton sketchbook and on cotton rag paper. It's also going to be interesting to see how these compare to Meiliang, Youlan, and to the Floral set. And I'm going to be doing side-by-side comparisons later on in this video. The Mars Black was a bonus, and there's no space for it on the swatch sheet. So as you guys will see, I do a little side-by-side swatch so that I can include it as well. So the colors are bright, they are saturated, they're basically what we expect from Paul Rubens. But, we haven't tried doing color mixing with these yet, and I'm looking forward to comparing these against other Paul Rubens watercolors. So I'm going to remove this from the desktop, and we're going to go ahead and try these out on my standard, the Blick Premier Cotton Rag Block. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment. And this is what I use for almost all of my watercolor reviews. I want to test opacity as well when we do this. So I am going to, bless you, Joseph, put a line up here at the top with alcohol marker, so we should be able to test opacity with these markers. What I'm going to be doing on this paper is we are going to do a mass tone swatch. We are going to do a swatch where we wash it out with clean water and look for things like granulation. We're going to be checking for opacity. And then we're going to move on to color mixing, and we're going to do two types of color mixing. We are going to do atomic color mixing where we take two colors and smash them together and come up with a third color. And we are going to do optical color mixing where we create a grid-like pattern to see how these colors layer and glaze on top of them. After we finish with this, we're going to move away from the Blick block right here. That is so hard to say. We're going to move on over to the Paul Rubens sketchbook, and we're going to do our wet into wet test in our sketchbook like I did last time, and we're going to do our color swatches. And then we are going to move on back to the Blick paper, and I'm hoping to do a four-way comparison. It may not be totally four-way, where we compare these against the Youlan, so the highest grade professional, against the Floral set, and against my Meiliang Pigments set. so that hopefully you guys will have the information you need to make an informed decision when you buy these. And then, depending on how all these things go, I may go ahead and put these into the field test, possibly in this sketchbook, like I did with the Youlan watercolors. So in general, I like the color selection in this palette, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how these colors handle in the field test. Also, getting a little bit ahead of myself, I noticed that there is no yellow ochre in this set, which is unusual. I tend to use yellow ochre as a skin tone mixing color. And a little bit later on, you will see that there is some interesting granulation to the Mars Black. And you'll also see that the neutrals are pretty in this set. I had no real issues with color activation, but as with my other Paul Rubens watercolors, I do notice that if you let water sit on these, they can get soupy. So having a ceramic mixing palette or some other way to do color control will help prevent paint wasting. After I swatched all 24 colors, I wanted to do some color mixing. I am starting out by setting up our grid for optical mixing since it takes a while to dry. So I am selecting primary colors, 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues. And while that dries, we're going to move on to atomic mixing, which is where we take 2 primary colors and we smash them together to get a secondary color. I did notice that these are kind of thick. They're decently easy to mix, so it's easy to mix most secondary colors, and some of the atomic mixes offer interesting granulation. It's going to be interesting to see how these handle for the wet into wet test. The yellows are kind of weak, and none of the colors, including the white, seem to have a lot of opacity to them. For the optical, these layered decently well, and I didn't notice a whole lot of reactivation. And we're also able to get some nice secondary glazed mixes out of these. So far, I'm pretty satisfied with how these Paul Rubens paints are handling. I want to move on over now to the Paul Rubens sketchbook, where we're going to swatch and then do our mud tests. These watercolors are very pretty on the Paul Rubens sketchbook paper, but the colors almost feel flat, and I'm not entirely sure why. It could just be me. You can definitely see some granulation on this paper, particularly with the blues like the cobalt blue hue and ultramarine, but with the Payne's gray splitting out into black and blue. And you can definitely see granulation with Mars black, which granulates almost like a lunar black on this paper. It's going to be interesting to see how these handle for the mud tests.
Honestly, this paper is just so lovely for wet into wet mixes. It holds onto water for a long time, it has an assertive texture, and the paint flows in a controlled manner, so it is just the right amount of sizing. While I don't think the Paul Rubens cold press sketchbooks is the best fit for every artist, as the texture can make it challenging to draw smaller things in detail, it is a lot of fun to paint on. I do have some areas of uneven drying with these, but I may not have saturated the paper enough in that area. So I'm not really seeing any unwanted flocculation. The colors move decently well, and I'm not seeing harsh edges except for where I didn't saturate the paper enough. Given how thick these paints handled when I was doing color mixing, I'm a little worried for the field test, but we'll see. We also didn't have significant color shifting or degradation as the paints dried. They stayed fairly saturated.
So this isn't fully dry yet, but I'm going to move this and switch back over to the Blick pad so that we can do the lift test and then we can do the swatch off.
These watercolors are very staining. They are not particularly lifting. So that was a property that I was hoping to see some variation in, and I did not see that with these watercolors.
Okay, so now on to the part that I might be the most excited for, the comparison swatches, because I always love how seeing watercolors stack up against one another. So I need this block for that comparison. I'm going to go ahead and use a palette knife to remove our swatches and set that aside. We are going to be doing 4 comparisons, so this and 3 others. So I am going to go ahead and put down opaque lines or black lines for all of them. Now, while I do this, I wanted to introduce myself in case you guys are new here. Hi, hello, welcome. I'm Becca Hilburn. If you are old here, welcome back. It is always a pleasure to see you. I am a watercolor comic artist and illustrator. I create the watercolor webcomic 7-inch Cara, which you can read for free at 7inchcara.com. I also do illustration. I have been painting with watercolor for about 15 years now, and I'm a weird combination of school of internet. My friends taught me a boatload of trial and error, making mistakes, learning new things. I have been teaching watercolor for around 10 years now, both on the internet and off the internet. And you might remember me from my blog over on now defunct blogspot, natosoup.blogspot.com. I have reviewed probably over 100 watercolors at this point. I would love it if you took a moment to look at my art. Here are some examples of it. You can find me at natosoup on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. So if you enjoy illustrative watercolor art inspired by anime and manga with a fantasy twist, you might enjoy what I do. So that is the lens that I look at watercolor. That is the lens through which I review watercolor. Is it suitable for comics? Is it at a price point that comic artists can afford? Is it suitable for illustration? I would not consider myself to be like a fine art artist, although I do care about archivability and things lasting a long time because I used to be a commission artist, and making art that people put up on their walls made me very happy, and I want my art to stand the test of time if somebody is paying good money for a commission. Even if they're buying an art print from me, I want it to last a long time, which is why I do my art prints through Cat Print. They do a great job of replicating my watercolor on their beautiful papers. That is not a sponsorship. That is a plug that I have art prints in my shop. So if you like my art, that's another way to support what I do and to be able to own a little bit of it for yourself. But basically, that's the lens that I look at watercolors and watercolor reviews, is how suitable these are for my illustration purposes. So I always try to disclose that like at the top, because not everybody's interested in that kind of watercolor. Not everybody has the same use cases as I do. And while I do put watercolors through a bunch of tests, so hopefully, you'll see information that is useful for you and will answer your questions, my conclusions may differ from your conclusions. We may have different opinions or feelings, and that is totally valid because we are not the same artist. None of us are at the same point in our artistic journeys. We all have different preferences and we all have different tastes. I might like something you hate. You might love something I really didn't like. and those opinions are all valid. And when you share your experiences with me in the comments, and let's all, be kind and respectful to one another, but when you share your experiences, that often challenges me to go back and re-examine my preconceived notions, to put watercolors and paints back through another test and see if my opinion has changed over time, because I am a human and I am allowed to grow. So if your opinion differs from mine, if you like something I don't like and vice versa, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you guys. You guys are a huge source of inspiration from me, but let's be real nice, real cool with one another. We can disagree with each other respectfully without calling other people stupid, just things like that. Even if we're not all adults here, let's all treat each other like we're all adults here and treat one another with respect. So I'm going to start off by swatching with this set here, the Cai Hui set. And I will be swatching with this beautiful flat from Artify.
So we're starting with the Cai Hui watercolor sent to me by Lightwish. The ultramarine blue in this set is kind of strange. It's like a blue violet or a Prussian blue more than like a true ultramarine blue. And these colors definitely flood the wash. Next is the Paul Rubens 48-piece Youlan set. You can tell that this is the Youlan set because of the tiger stripes. This is also available in pink. So after I swatch these, I am going to show you guys the swatch pages from the Cai Hui set as well as this set, as they include pigment info. So make sure you keep an eye out for that and pause if you want that pigment info. Now, one thing that I did notice about the Youlan set is that these don't muddy the water as much as the Cai Hui set seem to. So these may not include as many extenders or fillers to stretch out the colors. That said, this is a 48 color set, but even the 24 color set is about twice as expensive as the 24 color Cai Hui set. So it is a more expensive set, so it makes sense that there wouldn't be as many extenders and fillers. I have a full video review, including a field test of this set. If you guys are interested, make sure you check the description, because I put it through all the same paces that I'm putting this set through, and I do that for almost any watercolor set that I review, because I want to be able to understand how the watercolors handle and understand the pros and the cons, and to be able to talk about the watercolors in an informed way. And one of the ways to do that is to put them through their paces. Another thing I noticed with the Youlan set is that they don't flood the wash as much as the Cai Hui set, which might mean that the particle size is larger or that it doesn't include as much oxgal. There's a few reasons why that might be. In general, though, I do prefer how the Youlan set handles over the Cai Hui set, but that's not really a surprise. They are nicer watercolors. They are aimed at a more professional watercolor artist, I would argue. Although, as we've talked about, Paul Rubens' labeling of their products and where their products fall in the market can be very confusing, because they're all kind of marketed the same way. So this swatch card is for the Cai Hui set, and this swatch card here is for the Youlan set. So we do have some colors that seem visibly in common, although with the Cai Hui set, it's more hues, whereas with the Youlan set, it is more those actual colors, those cadmiums, those cobalts, etc. Next is the 24 color Paul Rubens Floral set. Now, this comparison is not a one-to-one because this is a curated set for florals. I just happen to like the color selection in this set and have been using this set a lot. This was also a set that was sent to me from Paul Rubens, and I selected this because it's like next down in the ladder from the Youlan set. So I'm not really sure where that it might be professional on a budget, might be how you describe this, or student who is more serious about watercolor and is willing to make the investment. Again, Paul Rubens doesn't really do a very clear job of denoting what set is for what artist. The ultramarine blue in both the Youlan and the floral set are both a normal ultramarine blue that you think of when you think of ultramarine blue. I'm not sure why the ultramarine blue in the Cai Hui set is so strange. That pigment is a fairly inexpensive pigment at this point because it's a synthetic. The neutrals in this set take a while to wake up. So if you're looking for a watercolor set where the neutrals activate very quickly, this set is not really the best fit for that. Finally, we have my old favorite, the Meiliang Pigments 36 color set. I bought this set a while back from my local brick and mortar. It has gotten a lot of use and it gets mentioned in a lot of videos. So this set is very bright, vibrant colors, and it has a decent color selection. Some of the neutrals can get a little weird, but that could be due to earth pigment differences across regions across the globe. I've used this set many times and I really like it, and I highly recommend it as a great student grade option as it's very affordable. I didn't like the tube version of these. I reviewed two different Meiliang tubes, the Hitoto and then the Meiliang tubes. So if you're curious about those, make sure you check out those videos. But I didn't like the tube versions as much as I just like their half pans. And the ultramarine blue in this set isn't weird the way I kind of feel like the Cai Hui set is kind of weird. It's just the Cai Hui set that has a more blue-violet sort of ultramarine, which again, I find weird because I use ultramarine blue as a mixing color, and changing it that much really changes how I'm able to mix colors with it. Here are all four palettes laid out from top to bottom: the Cai Hui, the Youlan, the Paul Rubens floral set, and then the Meiliang pigment set. Paul Rubens changes up their branding from time to time, so you may see variations in what's available with the third one from the top, as well as the Meiliang pigments. Sometimes they offer jewel boxes, sometimes the travel sets look a little bit different. So it's kind of hard to really put a pin on it, and this is going to be a repeated theme in this review. I really want Paul Rubens in the future to think about how they're marketing all these different products and who they're marketing them to. And then when they reach out to people like me to talk about these, just be clear with us who we're speaking to. Are we talking about students or are we talking about professionals?
I always find swatching to be really relaxing. There's something so meditative about just seeing the colors on the paper and how the colors handle when you add paper or add water. Sorry, do they flood the wash? Can you get a gradient out of them? Just those sort of differences are just really interesting to me, and I really enjoy watching them. So now we're going to move on to the field test.
Here's a rundown of all the color swatches in the order that they officially come in. I haven't reordered any of these sets, so that should kind of give you guys an idea of how these compare. And then here are our palettes like we just talked about. And here are our palettes open. So the Cai Hui, the Youlan, the 24 color floral set, and then the 36 color Meiliang. So the field test was sketched and inked in the Paul Rubens sketchbook. I'm going with pink, purple, and cerulean for the background, with cauliflowering as the underwash, and also adding in hints of yellow. And this is kind of a companion piece to that other elf illustration that I showed you guys, but I'm also, using this as a chance to play around with my Artify watercolor brushes and to play around with more flats and to play around on a paper that I happen to really like. This has been time-lapsed multiple times because this isn't meant to be a tutorial. It's just like a time lapse to show you guys how these paints handle in general. I went
went really ham with the bright saturated colors, maybe a little too ham, and that's fine. I did lift some of this back up a little bit later on. I wanted to try something a little bit different with the skin tone, since otherwise I would never use the flesh tint other than to like add some highlights to skin tones. And it's not a bad color, I just prefer to custom mix my skin tones rather than using something like a flesh tint, but there are lots of artists who like the inclusion of a flesh tint. So these are fairly easy to paint with, and they seem to layer very nicely. These handle quite well. The colors are a little less traditional than, say, the 48 color Youlan set, but in general they work well. The only one I'm not hot on is the ultramarine, which is too similar to the cobalt blue hue, but it's not really a big deal. I could also do without the Chinese white, but then I always feel that way. I never use white watercolors in my watercolor palettes. The larger face size suits the irregularities of this paper, and this paper suits the paints quite well. I feel like these paints handled pretty well, maybe not quite as intense as their more professional Paul Rubens counterparts, but it's still easy to activate with lots of color and mixes nicely, and even the weird skin tone mixed nicely. The main difference to my eye is the inclusion of so many hues, but that's without comparing the prices, which I actually have done at multiple points. So at this point I did compare the prices. If you're wondering how I'm liking the Artify watercolor brushes, I like them quite a bit, and I'm going to keep using them for field tests for a while. While they're not perfect, they remind me of Princeton Neptune and Creative Mark Mimic and are great for synthetic watercolor brushes. One thing I want to see Paul Rubens improve upon, and I keep harping on this, but it keeps coming up as an issue in this video, is I want them to improve on explaining why one line is different from another and what benefits each of these lines have to offer, and that will make it easier for you as a customer to decide which one is a good fit for you, because they are all at different price points, and easier for me as someone who reviews watercolors to say yes or to say no, to purchase new sets, and to also just be able to speak to their strengths and weaknesses with you guys. Because I'll just be honest with you guys, I cannot tell you why this set is different from the other sets other than the inclusions of more hues and a few color differences. And as it stands, for the price, if this is intended for beginner and student watercolorists, I would recommend their Meiliang pigments over these, as a Meiliang pigment set is around $20 and handles quite well. So if Paul Rubens can, or Lightwish can get back to me and tell me what's special about this set, I would love to hear it, because I've reviewed several Paul Rubens products without necessarily having the context to understand who they're made for, who they're marketing to, because the material that they provide on Amazon or that they provide on other websites is just very scarce and doesn't really give a full explanation. Now, all in all, I had fun painting this. I found them easy to use. I had no real struggles, and I enjoyed working with the paper. So all in all, I found these a delight to paint with. So one thing I'd like to see Paul Rubens improve upon is explaining why one line of their watercolors is different from another and what benefits each line offers. So the Youlan set shown here, it is available both in the pink set and the black set. This is the one with the tiger stripes on it. So this is the 24 color set, is $44.99 on Amazon. The floral set, which is just in the plain pink container, shown here. Well, okay, look, probably one here, one here, one here, right? Okay. The floral set is $40.49, and the Cai Hui set, and I could only tell that this was the correct set from the distinctive packaging. Paul Rubens labels all of theirs very similarly on Amazon, is $31.99 for 22, and then a 24 set of Meiliang pigments is $18.99. So again, $44.99, $40.49, $31.99, $18.99. This set definitely seems more student grade price compared to their other sets, although I stand by my statement that Paul Rubens is one of the most affordable introductions to quality watercolors, but I still don't really see the benefit of this set over, say, a Meiliang pigment set, unless they've changed the Meiliang formulation. My set is about 5 years old now. Other than the palette that this set comes in is much cuter, and it comes with a swatch card as well as the pigment info, whereas the Meiliang set, at least the one that I have, did not come with a swatch card or with pigment info. And sometimes it's worth it to know what pigments are being used, especially when it comes to selecting paints that would be safe for a younger, not a child, but like a teenager artist to use. So I just want to remind you guys that Paul Rubens sent me these paints. I did not purchase these, so take my opinion on these as you will. So what are my pros and cons for the Paul Rubens Cai Hui set? Let's start with the cons. Paul Rubens needs to do a better job with labeling and presenting their different grades of watercolor in an obvious way, from how they're named to how the descriptions are written. If you know what you're looking for, you can kind of tell from the design of the tin. Like their professional grade, the Youlan set has the tiger stripes. Their normal grade of watercolor comes in the pink or the blue or the black tin. Sometimes it comes in those jewel tone tints. The Cai Hui set comes in this really pretty watercolor tin. But so, you know, you can kind of tell if you know what you're looking for. But honestly, I love this beautiful multicolor tin better than the pink tins. I think this is so pretty. So it's not a surefire thing. Like I would have said this is a higher quality than the pink tin just based on how pretty the printing is on the tin. Right now, it can be hard to tell which Paul Rubens palette is the best fit for you. And I see this as somebody who's been reviewing Paul Rubens paints for a long time. And I have played around with a large variety of paints from Paul Rubens, both paints that I've purchased myself and paints that they've sent me. This set is very similar, in my opinion, to their Meiliang line, and their Meiliang line just can't be beat for price versus handling. So it's hard to suggest this palette over the Meiliang Pigments palette. If you're looking for a student grade palette, I would still recommend the Meiliang Pigments. Like I said, their price is great, and we have the swatches right here that you guys saw me do. Now, this is the 38 color set, so you do get more colors with that one, but I felt like they handled very similarly, and I was very happy with how they handled. So what about the pros for this set? If you don't want to work with toxic paints such as cobalts and cadmiums, this palette features a lot of hues of those tones, which is a safer alternative and may be a better fit for younger artists or artists who have children and pets. I love the color of this tin. I guess Bowie agrees. It is just absolutely gorgeous. In general, I really like the selection of colors in this set as well. I think it was decently curated. Paul Rubens overall is very competitively priced and the paints are great. It's very easy to recommend Paul Rubens as a great place to start for those looking to get into watercolor. The paints in this set activate readily and easily. The colors are saturated and vibrant, and I found that the colors mix well. It's hard to show you guys. So what is my verdict on the Cai Hui set? Well, I'm so curious to know what makes this set special and different, and I hope that Paul Rubens will consider reaching out to me and letting me know what makes this set in particular special. When they reached out to me initially, they just asked if I'd be interested in taking a look at another one of their palettes, and they didn't, and you know, I didn't really make them pitch it to me, and maybe I should have. Just to better understand what makes this special outside of what like Amazon says, because I find that their descriptions on Amazon are not the most helpful in terms of deciding which Paul Rubens palette I really want to take a look at. I do really like this palette, but I feel like it gets kind of lost in the Paul Rubens sauce. If you're looking for professional grade, I would recommend their Youlan palette. If you're looking for budget, I'd recommend their Meiliang Pigments. This palette just gets kind of lost, unless there are special properties to these paints that I'm not aware of. While I love the palette and I think the paints are good, I think you're better served either with the Youlan palette or you're better served with the Meiliang Pigments palette. But both of them are from Paul Rubens. So in the end, I am still recommending Paul Rubens paints. So if this was your first time catching one of my reviews, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and hanging out to the very end. I hope this was helpful, useful, and informative, and hopefully I answered your questions about this palette, comparing it to other Paul Rubens palettes, and hopefully you can decide if this is a good fit for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed reviews like this, it would really mean a lot to me if you click the subscribe button and hit the bell notification, and that way YouTube will send you more of my videos. Even if you think you are subscribed, do me a massive favor and double check, because YouTube tells me that 80% of you guys are not subscribers, and I'd love to have more of you guys join me here on YouTube. If you like what I do and you want to help me continue to be able to do it, please keep in mind that the vast majority of the art supplies that I review, this is an exception, to be fair, were purchased by me out of pocket with funds raised from my Patreon. So if you want to support what I do and get access to coloring sheets like this one, I shared this as a printable coloring sheet, you can join me for just $2 a month at patreon.com/natosoup. Or if you would like to own some of my art, I have my comics and art prints and stickers up in my shop at natosoup.com/shop. And that cat that you hear naggarding in the background, just keep in mind that the support that you share with this channel goes to buying my boy greenies and churros and neutros. And I'm sure he would appreciate more churros. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope it was helpful, useful, and informative, and I hope to see you guys again soon. And a big thank you to Paul Rubens for sending this palette to me to review. I'm a big fan of their watercolors. I actually have more Paul Rubens reviews in the pipeline. So speaking of being a fan of Paul Rubens watercolors, I purchased these, and I purchased these. These are Meiliang. I can't turn them over because they put my address sticker right there on the front of the package. But I do also purchase a lot of products from Paul Rubens. So it isn't just them sending me stuff and me talking about it. And if I didn't like their watercolors, I wouldn't accept these, because I really want to focus on art supplies that I enjoy and I think you guys will enjoy. Sometimes I'm wrong about that. Like I had a recent video come out with Artistro watercolor paints that I bought, and they were terrible. But my goal is to always be honest with you guys, give you guys information that you can use, and to demonstrate my process so that you can make an informed decision. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys soon. Appreciate Paul Rubens sending me these to review. The tin is gorgeous. The paints are nice, but I would be remiss in kind of the pledge that I've taken to you guys to always be as honest as I possibly can. And to be fair, I do not consider this a review since this was sent to me. But anyway, I kind of feel like I'm not sure where these fit in. Maybe they have a special property that I'm not aware of, and that wasn't like readily disclosed. Maybe they're like Gansite, where I'm using them just a little bit differently from their intended use, and that's why I'm not getting the big picture. Hopefully somebody from Paul Rubens, or maybe one of you guys, can let me know where these fit in the scheme of things. I did like them. I think the palette is gorgeous. Honestly, my suggestion to Paul Rubens would be, and you guys can disagree with me, I would almost say swap out for their medium line that comes in the pink tins in the US. Do it in these tins. These tins are beautiful. They are so, so pretty. Do it in these tins and move the pink and blue tins to whatever this line is. And I know that would cause further confusion, so that might not be a good idea. Otherwise, I really want to see Paul Rubens focus on labeling their products so that consumers know exactly is this an expert? Is this archival? Is this with single pigment watercolors? Are these hues instead of toxic cadmiums and cobalts? Like, take a look at like how Winsor & Newton kind of positions themselves and how they label their different lines, because it's going to make it easier for Paul Rubens to find the audience they're looking for each one of their lines, and they have several, so that would be really helpful. But knowing what I know and not knowing what I know, my recommendation, while this is a beautiful palette, if you're looking for something more professional, the Youlan set, so that would be the 48 color set that I reviewed. Really liked it. I think it's a great option for comic artists. It has a lot of pre-mix, great convenience colors out of the gate. That would be my recommendation. And then if you're looking for something more budget friendly, you can't really miss with their Meiliang pigments. I still really like them and I still recommend them. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful, useful, and informative. Thank you again to Paul Rubens for sending me this gorgeous watercolor set, as well as this is one of the sketchbooks they sent a while back, but it's the same as the one they just sent. So I'm gonna gift the one they just sent to a friend of mine. Because I'm trying to fill this one up and I'm trying not to hoard. I know, how ridiculous. I'm definitely hoarding more art supplies, but you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to pass it on to somebody else. So it's the same sketchbook. I really like this paper. It's really fun to paint in. So thank you guys so much for sending me these. I had a lot of fun with them, and I always appreciate when Paul Rubens reaches out to me and sees if I'm interested in taking a look at what they have, because I think they've got some really great products and I like being able to share them with you guys. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you found this inspiring. I will have the line art from the field test up on my Patreon, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye guys!